All right, guys. Well, small group, and I am going to have to. I have a hard stop at 2:45 today. So, one of my PhD students is doing his comprehensive exam next week, and I'm meeting with the committee to develop his exam and decide his fate. So, but I don't want to be late for that one.
No problem. Let's get to it.
All right,
That actually scares the heck out of me, Joe.
Yeah. Yeah, as you start looking at PhD programs, yeah, it's we don't get paid well, but you know, we have a lot of influence over some people. So, you know, for those with fragile egos like we have, it makes it all up. Anyways, so this is where we left off, guys. We had we were developing the SLOs, student learning outcomes, or learning objective, whatever we want to call it, for a single UAS course that would be the entry level curriculum needed to be covered in order to enter the CTI group. When we broke last, we had identified these were our 5 items, and we used the Bloom taxonomy to intentionally and I wouldn't say fought, but we had a rigorous discussion on the wording of all these. So I think we're all in agreement. Now the next task is for us to identify specific, what we call, I think, subtopics for each of the above. So that's what we're doing here. Does that sound right to everybody else?
Yes.
All right. So what I propose we do, I'm going to go ahead and get rid of this here and get rid of the color and then get rid of this item here and then take these ones and man, I'm used to Excel. I'm not as good with Google Sheets. All right, so I just copied those down, and what I propose we do is just kind of start filling these out and see what we need.
Sounds good to me.
Okay, so what are some subtopics of demonstrate proficiency in knowledge areas included in Part 107 exam?
Well, this is going to be essentially the outline of the areas on the exam, right?
I think that's what I was thinking too.
Yeah. So the question is that I agree with you, Donald. And the question would be, is that okay? So how would we define to demonstrate proficiency? Are we just saying you must demonstrate via, you know, verbal knowledge or a test, or, you know, or do we go that far into this, or we just say here is the subheadings, which is right out of 107, you know, and then leave it up to the college?
Well, what I would suggest, if I may, Joe, is rather than putting the subheadings here, leave those 5 together in a group, because those are our objectives. And then beneath it, we could then break down the different the different areas. So now we start a new list that's Part 107 knowledge areas, and then we add the subtopics to that. That way we keep separate the objectives from what we're going to do to get them to those objectives.
So
that
what do we call, I'm cool with that. What are we calling this? The R5 here? Are we calling these CTI learning objectives?
It works for me. I mean, we call them SLOs in our world.
SLOs, like student learning outcomes?
Student learning outcomes, yeah.
All right. So how about
because the way
comes to or CTI.
Yeah. You definitely need to reference CTI in there.
Does that sound okay?
Yeah, I think that's perfectly reasonable.
Sure.
Okay. All right. So if that's perfectly reasonable, let's go down here. Okay. So these are going to be, so what will these, so what are these exactly? These are more broke down topics that need to be covered underneath the SLOs?
Yeah, in California, we call them topics in scope, because that's how we break it down.
Minimum. We call them learning activities, I guess.
Yeah, same here.
learning activities.
So
I
normally,
would support the outcome.
yeah, so what we end up doing is that we then say, okay, in number 1, which is demonstrate the proficiency, then we break that down. Then we go on to number 2, etc.
Yeah. So you could do like 1.1.
That's what I'm
Here's-
suggesting is we now, let's say 1.1, this means this, we're going to start with the 1 and let's start breaking those things down. So this would be, where we'd have to say just what the 107 is from NAS on,
Yeah,
like
airspace.
107
AV.
subpart A, B, C, D, E, break it up that way or what have you.
I would just look at it like what Donald mentioned at this level, just to say that I think there's, 5 general topics into that, into the 107.
Well, I just looked it up because I wasn't certain. Are these them? This is the FAA.
Yeah,
That's them.
there you got it.
That's going to be the top level, and then those can be broken down further,
Right.
depending on how detailed we want to get.
Yeah, but I would just cut and paste that because that's it.
All right. Well, let me put this back up. What does that actually mean though? Okay, let's just take an easy one right here at the bottom because it's short and sweet. Operation at night. What is that? I mean, that's not really a learning activity, is it?
No, and that's why we call these topics, not learning activities. But again, different states will use different wording.
Sean, I think that was you that came up with that introduced learning activities.
Yeah, so I guess I have the way I have my course broken up, and I mean, you can dice it pretty much any way, but I have different module pages, I guess, if you will, and I just broke it up into the subpart A, subpart B, C, and E and D that way, just so it wasn't so much at once. But I mean, you could really go into any level of detail here, as long as, I mean, you could just put part 107 here. I mean, as long as you're covering them.
So
That's really what we're doing with number 1 is the proficiency in 101. So we're going to take what is required by the FAA under 101, make that a subtopic here. And then later we can then break it down even further if we even want to go that far.
So that's why I'm kind of liking the word topic instead of learning activity. When I think activity, that's something that's something you're doing, right?
Yeah, true.
Yeah, that's how I read it.
Yep.
All right. So I mean, minimum topics,
Or just topics that support. Or if you want to include minimum, you can, but
Yeah,
topics.
I mean, that works fine.
Okay. So these would be. So this is like an example of the first one, but this is what you guys are kind of envisioning.
yeah. And then you can break it down further depending on how deep we want to go.
Yeah, that's right.
How deep do we want to go?
Well,
So that's just it with this one is the FAA pretty much defines that list. And I'm guessing it's going to change over time. So instead of defining it here, can we just say includes the topics in part 107 and then let the FAA define that list? Because they're
Oh, you're right, because it could change, right?
it could.
I mean,
yeah, I don't think we need to reinvent the wheel here by showing the same list that they already did.
okay, fair enough. So what if I did something like this? How about the knowledge topics included with FAA Part 107 exam? I suppose I could put a website here.
Yeah, you could just do the knowledge topics and the 107
Yeah, I
regulations.
would link directly to that page you just had up. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, you could do that page, or you could just link right to the CFR page too.
I would go to the page that you had up earlier, that because that spelled them out nice and neatly.
Mhm.
Yeah, and how in the
True.
all right, well, I'm showing my own ignorance here, but it's not letting me have a hyperlink. I don't really use Google Sheets. So where's the hyperlink button on this?
A couple buttons to the right, there's like a little chain link icon.
Chain.
Yeah, oh, you passed it. Go back to the right, about 5 buttons. One more.
There.
There you go.
Got it.
And then you can just paste your link in.
Okay, all right. All right, so get rid of that. Copy, paste. Okay, are we liking that?
Yeah, for now, I think that we may want to go deeper, but for now, let's stick with the high level.
Yeah, and I agree with Donald on that. I think we just should go to the next, what we're doing, let's just keep it on the next level for all of them. And then we can go back around and start digging into it even more if we want to.
Okay.
Yeah.
And the other question I have, speaking of that, is that how far down the rabbit hole do we want to go with this, and which would confine even the way that the institutes would even teach. I don't want to get into something that says that, hey, that we're requiring an instructor to do a certain thing, but as long as they meet certain topics and meet that, how they get there, I think that we should let them do it. That goes back our discussion, remember, we had with the NIST and the flight exams,
Yeah, Mike, where I think you're going with this is defining how they demonstrate flight proficiency, or how they demonstrate the knowledge.
Right.
And I mean, it's open for debate, but I would let them define it.
That's why
I'd say we need to define what needs to be covered, not necessarily how, because everybody has their academic freedom, everybody has different experiences, and that's the benefit of bringing in instructors is
that's right.
do it their way.
Okay, trying to play devil's advocate here, though. If what we're looking for is something that we can hand to school that has nothing, giving them, like item 1.1 there, is no different than them just using Google, whereas a deeper outline will help somebody
Yes,
to be able to get running faster.
and you could do that as a suggestion. So you're right. If they have nothing, then here is a boilerplate of how you can get there.
And I will tell you, I was just at Droning On Southern California this weekend, and Diana had me talk briefly about what we're doing in the committee. And there were several schools that want to start programs and they have nothing. And they were really, really hoping that we could hand them as complete of a course as possible.
Okay. I mean, we can go down that rabbit hole. I mean, we can do that, to where it's actually we can even create the content for them, to where you just put it in place, and there you go, put a quarter in it and run it. But the concern I have, what I don't want to do is start getting into it says, okay, here is a recommendation, such as, let's take the NIST BPrep. Here it is, right down to building buckets, and how you do it and everything. But, as Donald pointed out, he has another program he feels is as good, if not better.
Mm-hmm.
So what we don't want to do is chokehold these people on, just say, hey, here's a recommendation. You got to meet these, but here's a recommendation.
And I think we can couch that in terms like when we get to talking about flight proficiency demonstration, we can say such as NIST or X or Y.
Yes. And I think so. Then the question is that if they are looking for something that they can just grab and go, do we in fact then integrate NIST into this program, the CTI program for them? I mean, do we go that far?
Yeah, and I don't think so personally.
Okay.
I would say only if we're at the point where I can tell you where NCAT wants to go with this is they want to have what they're calling a book on the shelf or whatever, where you got modules for things. And where you want to build classes and you take all these books off the shelf. One's a Part 107 exam prep, one's a flight proficiency test. A book on the shelf is going to be NIST. It may not be the only book in that genre, right? But that, I mean, developing that is I mean, that's a big
Yeah.
matzo ball. I mean,
It
that's a
is.
little bit, that's beyond the charter of this committee, at least right now.
Right,
So,
right.
so basically what we're saying is that we're not going to develop these individual books because we're just going to point to them and say they're there.
Right. But I would, maybe that's what this, maybe if we use that analogy, is what we're developing here. Are these the books?
These are the titles of the books. Yeah.
Yes, I agree.
And if we
Okay.
go one level deeper, those are the chapters,
Yeah.
if you want to use that analogy.
This is the genre.
Yeah.
This is sci-fi, history, whatever.
Yeah.
This is the books. And
Yeah.
then, all right. And then 1.1.1 or whatever it happens to be is the chapter of the book.
You
There
got
you
it.
go.
Yeah,
I think
I
we
like,
keep, I like it. I think we keep that thought, then I think we're going to do fine here.
okay. All right. Well, my opinion is we don't need to have the chapters of the Part 107 exam prep book here. I would say we leave it here as that's the book.
Agreed. Then we can always go back if we need to.
Well, yeah, I'd
Flush
say
it.
right now, let's put down the titles of the books, and then we can add another section, which are the contents of the books, you know, the chapter titles.
Right.
Okay. All right. So, I mean, can I move on past 1?
Yep.
All right. So chapter 2. All right. So these are chapters of the books, and this is demonstrate flight with a measurable flight assessment.
That would be NIST, period. That's
Yes.
NIST right there.
Yeah.
Well, NIST or other.
Yeah, there's more than one way to.
Yes.
Yeah.
Well, this is, I would say these are topics that support the minimum SLOs. This isn't like the pathway. This is a book on the shelf, right? And we've
Yep.
got Donald's book right next to it.
Here you go.
Probably
Right.
thicker with better pictures and more up to
Absolutely.
date and all that.
But like, so if we're looking at the top section of the genres, the second section are the titles. So this is going to be develop and or administrate flight proficiency assessment.
And
Because they may develop their own, or they may use an off-the-shelf one like NIST.
Well, I think I like what Joe said originally. I think that if we're talking about titles of the book, there is a book and it's NIST, but you can say, you know, or equivalent. And then
Yeah,
put other books, but put other books up there.
yeah, I'm
Okay.
kind of that mind is that NIST is its own book.
Yeah,
And
it's its own book, period, you know. So I would put books, I would put NIST or equivalent. Then if say Donald publishes his, you know, methodology, then it's Donald's book, you know.
Developing us during
We
the
add that
NIST.
to the bookshelf.
Sure.
Flight proficiency.
Well, I don't like you. So the reason I don't want to go backwards on this, but I balk at flight proficiency because when I think of flight proficiency, it's a combination of 2 and 3 right here.
Yeah.
Flight proficiency is stick control and operating, and then mission planning, as we call it here.
Well, then how about piloting skills?
Okay, I can buy that. Measure piloting skills. Develop and administer the NIST open test lane, which, I mean, NIST has more than the open test lane.
I know. I would not put the open test lane as the, you know, I would just
Yeah, I would say NIST or other.
yeah.
Well, so I mean,
NIST.
NIST.
Oh gosh. That?
Can we do something like develop and administrate flight labs to measure piloting skills such as NIST? And because NIST is, I mean, it's like I said, it's not the only one. What we're doing is defining a flight lab. They have to perform some procedure to show their flight skills.
I like the wording of that, but I keep going back to like, what are we building?
Yeah.
Yeah, this is, in my judgment, this is a book that if I wanted to implement NIST open lane, if I want to do the NIST open lane, this is a book I'm going to
this
pull
is
off the
book.
shelf.
That's right.
Right,
If
but
Yeah,
I'm
but-
seeing I'm seeing it differently. This is the book that says it's going to tell you here are different ways you can demonstrate flight proficiency.
Yeah, there's more than one way. NIST isn't
And
the only
yeah,
way.
and NIST would be one chapter of the book.
Okay,
Other ones would be another chapter.
so so NIST open lane is a chapter within this book.
Right, and then other NIST tests could be other chapters. And any other tests flight test you come up with could be other chapters.
Yeah, in
for my
support of
flight
that-
labs- Go ahead.
Sorry. I was just going to say in support of that on the workforce training side of things, we have industry partners that share their proficiency pieces with us, and we tend to use that from workforce training side. So I think there are more than one.
All right, Sean, how did you write this before? Or how did you say it?
So I guess I call them flight labs. So I would do develop and administrate flight labs to demonstrate what was the last piece you
It's
had?
to assess
Pilot skills.
pilot skills.
Assess pilot skills, yeah, such as NIST. Because for my flight labs, I used something very similar to NIST. I don't have buckets, just funding or whatever, but something very similar to it. But then we also do a path following. So they have to refine their stick controls on being able to follow a wandering path. We also do target following. Like there's multiple ways that you can refine your stick control beyond just the NIST open lane test.
Yeah, I have them do a obstacle course where they have to fly through a meandering path of targets. So
Yeah, yep.
And if you look at the NIST, as beyond the open lane test, and you start getting into the scenarios, they support that. That in fact that's what I usually do. I go out and have a bunch of pickup trucks and things and turn them upside down and make the police officers go in there and see how many people are hurt, or whatever. So it's really a flexible way depending upon your training objectives are. And but I think that the one book of NIST allows not only open lane test, but also functionality test, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And the list is very long within NIST. So that gives them the creative, depending upon the audience that they're teaching to. So one book is NIST that covers not only open lane or BPREP, but it covers a whole bunch of other stuff,
Yeah, so you get on your 2.1.2, you could do some type of objective-based flight labs, or
yeah, whatever.
there's a purpose to it.
But I think that the concept here is that somebody who wants this to grab these books can say, hey, NIST is one of the ones that you can look at to use it as your standard to meet these objectives. But if they have other ones, then they can present those as accomplishing the same thing.
I think the question is NIST, is it a book or a chapter? Is there enough in NIST for it to be a book? And then these other different mechanisms that we were talking about, other different tests, were they their own book? I mean, we're splitting hair, guys. I mean, I'm of the mind that NIST is its own book, but
that's my vote. My vote is NIST is its own book.
I see it as a chapter because one chapter.
I wish we could vote, but there's not enough of us.
There's not enough of the
That's
book.
fine.
Joe, here's
Well, so
what
that kind of gets into, now you're defining how they should do something. And I think what we should be doing is defining what, not how.
But
Well, and
also, we have to remember that ASTM has already done that, and NIST is part of that program. So it's already done in the government. This is what they're saying, So I'm just saying that it's a book. It's not the only book to accomplish what we're wanting to do, but it is it's been done,
So I like 2.1, and then I would say 2.1.1 would be examples of flight labs assessments, and then NIST would be one of them, and then we could list a couple others below that.
Well, I'm still of the nature that NIST is a book, but that's, hey, I can be outvoted.
Yeah, I mean, I think we might be at an impasse here, guys, and it may be
Yeah.
moot, but
May I suggest we get rid of 2.1.1 and 2.1.2 and forget about them for now? And just move on to the others, and then we can come back and arm wrestle.
Leave it blank.
I
Well,
guess,
keep 2.1,
yeah,
and now let's move on to 3.1. Let's do the top level, and then we dig deeper.
okay.
Always save an argument for later. You never know when you need one.
Right. Fair enough. All right. Well, this one, we'll need to back to this one. All right. All right. Create the mission plan, including flight requirement authorization. Okay. So these are specific things such as, how about this? Demonstrate ability to request ATC authorization through the Lance network. Is that worthy of inclusion?
Well, the
Yeah.
topic would be ATC authorization through the lens. This is not a demonstrate. This is a topic, not a.
Oh, these are topics.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. I'll buy that. Okay.
So
ATC.
if you really want to keep it high level, it should just be airspace authorizations, and under that would be Lance as opposed to drone zone.
Yeah. that would
Okay,
make
yeah.
sense to me.
Yep. Okay.
So
Okay.
it really, yeah.
Airspace. All right. I buy that. Okay.
Again, trying to keep these really high level, and then it's the subtopics beneath them that will break it down further.
Do we want to break these out into subtopics now? 3.1.1
I
That
would say,
be, yeah, Lance, drone
Okay.
zone.
to
We can always add more later, but you also might have geofencing unlocking potentially too, depending on what drone you have.
okay.
Would you start getting down into part of the authorizations is COAs and /NOTAMs and all that, how far down do you want to go?
well, that's why I'm saying, that's why I'm recommending we just stay at top level for now,
Yeah.
and then we can dig into these later.
Yeah.
All right. So not put these for now.
Not yet. Keep keep the chapter. We're looking at chapter titles here.
Okay. Book titles.
Book titles. Sorry, book titles. Yes.
Okay. All right. Airspace authorization.
Now, on number 3, are we talking about manual and automated missions, right?
Yes.
Okay.
And of course, if we're doing, okay, just to throw one more in, if we're doing book titles here, then really this should be mission planning. Airspace authorization is a chapter within mission planning.
Yeah, but that's what the learning outcome defines. It says mission.
Right, but if we want to have a kind of a parallel structure, because SLO number 3 is mission planning, that includes all these things. So
yeah, that's what I'm thinking too, Donald. I think that mission planning really does include all of that, but it also we're starting to getting into number 4, which is the execution of missions.
Right.
So
So I think the books are mission planning and mission execution.
Yeah.
Is the book, I mean, it says create a mission plan. Is the book's not flight requirements, authorization, site access, equipment needs, and safety considerations?
Well, that includes those things. There are other things under mission planning that aren't listed there. And that's why I think the book is mission planning and the chapters cover those individual sections.
I'm not certain the difference between 3 and then 3.1 then.
Yes.
mean, what's the difference between 3 and 3.1?
Not much, but the subtopics are what break it down further.
Yeah, it actually, 3 should be mission planning. and
Well, no, but
then-
3 is an outcome. The outcome is that they are
Ah.
able to create a mission
Yeah,
plan.
yeah. okay.
3.1 is where they learn what's in a mission plan,
Yeah, good point.
right? The
Okay.
SLOs are what the students can do at the end. The topics are what they learn in order to get to the point where they can do that.
So you still think mission planning should be 3.1 and 3.1.1 would be authorization?
Would be, yeah, on all those things would be the subs. Yeah. I mean, again, the way we approach it, just for context of where I'm coming from, in California, the SLOs, we always preface with, at the end of the course, the student should be able to, right? So those, the
Mhm.
SLOs are what they can do when they finish the course. And then
Right.
our topics are, during the course, students will learn, and these are the topics of what they learn to give them the skills they need to complete the
Mhm.
SLO.
All right. I can be sold on that.
So that's the window I'm looking at it from. So, and again, keep it real broad at the top level. 4.1 is going to be mission execution or something like that. Mission completion or whatever wording makes you happy.
I have a feeling we're going to have 5 SLOs and we're going to have 5 topics.
And
Yeah.
that's perfectly reasonable because there's going to be a ton of subtopics under them.
Okay.
And there's nothing wrong with that mapping.
Okay. All right. Well,
Or
Okay.
probably be something like flight operation.
Flight operation, that works. Whatever terminology makes you happy. All right, this is one I won't argue with.
we execute a mission, which includes. All right. So flight operations.
Sure.
All right. 5.1. All right.
Oh man, I was going to say flight operations, but create industry relevant, deliverable based on UAS collected data.
Hmm.
You could call it data
Like
collection
processing
and
or
yeah,
data
or
process.
data
it-
collection and presentation or whatever, something like that.
Right.
Data collection and analysis, really, because,
Okay.
you
Yeah.
know,
Well, let me throw this out here for this one being different because these could be wild and not every class needs to have this. How
True.
about photogrammetry and then 6.1 thermography, and then, keep going because I don't know that I don't think we're going to have a book that includes photogrammetry, thermography, multispectral. I mean, that's too
Yeah.
big a book, right?
it is, it is.
So 5.1, 6.1, those are topics that support SLO number 5,
Right.
but I don't think we necessarily mean that you have to have these in your syllabi. Does that make sense?
Yeah. Or should we have something that kind of goes over UAS systems?
I think we should have,
And
the
then-
book should be data analysis. And, or something along those lines. And these are going to be sub things because not everybody's going to include these. Remember, we're looking for minimums.
So we got to make sure that the clarity here is that, sure, you have data analysis or image analysis or whatever, but the format of how you do that, it could be photogrammetry, but the question is that are we forcing them to have a curriculum that's going to cover thermography or LiDAR?
Exactly.
That seems like way
CGI?
too much to have all
Yeah.
that in one class.
There are going to be schools that all they do is take pictures.
That's
And
correct.
and that's good enough. So that's why I think it needs to be data capture and analysis is this title.
Yeah,
And then
yeah.
we can give examples of different flavors of that.
Yeah,
All
then,
right.
then it would be their options of pulling those in.
Exactly.
Yeah,
Yeah, I kind
I
of agree
agree
with
with that.
Donald. Because if we add too much into these chapters and don't
Yeah.
align it in, then that forces you to go through each one of these chapters as a requirement. That may not necessarily. be the
yeah,
case.
yeah, I agree.
Well, it
Well,
might not even fit it into a 3-credit course. Right now, what we're defining here, if you have photogrammetry, is 2 of my courses, because we have the 107 and kind of the, commercial operations as a course, and then I have all of the photogrammetry stuff, an entirely different course, just
Yeah.
takes
I-
that
Yeah.
much time to go through.
It's-
My intro course has 1 week where I talk about photogrammetry, and then my second course is all about it. So yeah,
Yeah. Yeah, same here. I have a 4-credit-hour photogrammetry class that follows the textbook out of Arizona State, actually.
Yeah.
They did a real good job with that.
All right, so I don't think these are gonna be, I mean, are we saying that these are gonna be required? And then these are the required books, and then we've got optional chapters underneath them?
that's what I see.
Yeah.
Okay,
Well, I think we'll have some required chapters and then optional ones.
Well, the interesting thing about it is that, yeah, I can see that was like, say, mission planning, because there's some very defined things in the mission planning that you need to do, right? Whereas if you go to 2.1, for lack of things other than a good argument, there lies, hey, this being one option, this being another option, this being another option, but at least has to have these elements in it. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, same thing with data analysis, right?
Yeah, same.
Looking at photos that you've taken, that's probably required. Everybody needs
Yeah.
to be able to look at the photos. Photogrammetry and the like is something that can be optional.
Yeah. So if we think about what Joe mentioned a while ago, that the end result with this stuff is to be able to, and as what I think Donald, you pointed out on the meeting that you had, that there are people out there that saying, I want to be able to go to your library and just pull it and there's my course. So we're going to have to think probably in those terms to be able to satisfy that, because I kind of agree with it, is that this is a place, if you want to be CTI certified, here is the course. You can take it or you can develop your own, as long as it has this format to it.
Exactly.
sorry, guys, I'm just kind of
Do it.
spreadsheeting away here.
No, that's fine.
Is this kind of what we're thinking? We're going to part 107 now.
Yeah, yeah.
Yep, that looks fine.
Agreed.
You guys don't need to watch me do all this.
Oh, but it's so much fun.
Mesmerizing,
Yeah.
mesmerizing, Joe. It's just,
Right, exactly. And then once we get down to it, 2.1.1. Not gonna let NIST out of the discussion here. So NIST, open test lane.
Or equivalent.
Well, no, these are chapters now, right?
Okay. Yeah, fair enough.
All right, so NIST, selected test lane. What do we want to call, I mean, Don, what are we going to call the other? Like, you got a great one, but it's probably not.
At the moment, just say other, and then we can figure out what we want to do about that later.
All right.
because maybe other is an outline or a direction of how to create your own.
Exactly.
Okay. Ooh,
But for
I
now,
like that.
we're doing chapter titles. That
Yeah.
would be inside the title of the chapter, right?
Correct.
So,
In this scenario, I put in this scenario also on those, because they go through the whole scenario routine.
So those 4 are gonna be required?
no. The chapters are not required, right?
Right.
Well, I would say the 107 stuff kind of is.
Yeah. What we would probably need to do is denote somehow, an
Yeah.
asterisk.
Yeah. Otherwise, nobody's gonna know.
Yeah.
But I
Somewhere-
have 7 flight labs in my class, and most of them are all developed by me.
Right.
And I have a NIST equivalent for the open lane test. Otherwise, they're all, so
I think all of them are required except 5. And five's required, but there's like multiple ways of getting to it.
Right. No. The books, I agree, are all required. The chapters, though, we're going to have to, like all of the 1.1s are required.
Yeah.
But the 2.1s, they don't have to do all of them. They can choose any of those that they want.
So it's just like, it's part of your introduction within that chapter. Okay. So you
Yeah.
can just say these are required. And then when you get into the 2.1, what you can say is that you have a
Yep.
choice
One or
here.
more.
You have NIST that's already built, take it and go. Or if you decide to create your own, then here's this outline that we need you to adhere to. Okay.
Yeah.
Guys, I'm gonna finish up the numbering here, but I gotta hop off here in a couple of minutes here. Does anyone, I mean, we can either kind of bag this or postpone this meeting or postpone the discussion, or if someone wants to take over the controls,
Well,
they
you
can do that
you
too.
do such a good job. I think we can just, let's do it again.
All
No,
right,
I think getting our metaphor sorted out has helped a lot.
It has helped a lot, Donald. It really has.
yeah, and I mean, you guys agree with this, right? Genre, book, chapter?
Yeah,
You got it. We are in
Oh,
agreement
yeah.
on that.
no
Okay.
doubt.
And I agree. The introduction to the chapter will tell you whether the chapters are required or not.
That's correct. Yeah.
Or the introduction to the book, I guess, would be where that would be. But yeah.
All right, and then finally here, I am gonna make you guys watch me do this.
It's only
Okay.
fair. Grief we put you through, it's only fair.
Okay. All right. So when we come back, we will finish flushing out the chapters.
Yeah.
Your chapter titles. We haven't
Chapter
fleshed out the
titles.
chapters themselves yet.
Chapter titles. All right. I love it. All right. Are we
Looks good.
good?
We're
I
good.
think we've made progress.
Yep.
Okay.
I think we did. Actually, I think we did a big progress.
Yeah. For what it's worth, if we measure it by number of words on the spreadsheet, today's probably award winner. More words today than any other day.
We'll take it. We'll take any victories we can get.
There we go. No doubt.
Exactly. All right, guys. Well, I'm going to hop off here.
All right.
Thanks. And I'm assuming we have our next meeting on the calendar at some point.
I don't
There it
see, I don't know if it is or not. Has anybody seen it?
Not yet. I have not seen it yet.
Yeah, I don't see it either.
I'm certain if you drop Diana a note, she can figure out whether it's been done or not.
Okay.
Yeah, I think Diana can coordinate the next
Yeah,
meeting.
because
or-
it's definitely not on it's definitely not on the calendar.
Yeah, I don't have it either.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. Well, I will send her a note right now and just and ask her.